Let's have ourselves a live show. What's going on, everyone? What's going on out there in Unfound Land on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube? Hope everybody's doing great. Hope everybody's 2022 is going smoothly, as smoothly as possible, given current circumstances with inflation and COVID, Omicron, and everything else. I hope you're able to try to keep it some sense of normality out there. Mental health is very important during these times. Please remember that. And how am I doing? Well, I'm going to get into that in just a little bit because, as all of you know, I usually start out with the personal stuff first. And then we get into anything concerning Unfound. We do some national news items, and actually this week will be a little of international news. And I'm going to answer some questions along the way from Karen and Laura. And then, as you know, if you've watched this live show before, or maybe you are a new watcher, that's exciting. You know that we finish every live show talking about this coming Friday's disappearance episode. That's what we do here. And for the live show that is now over 4 years old. So who's in here? Karen? Yes, your question will get answered tonight. Valerie, Charlotte, Assistant Carrie, Kathy, good to see you, Kathy. CR, Jasmine, Laura, what's going on? Hello, Cherie. Thank you for moderating tonight. Delane, K Dog, DAWG. And who else? Brian, good to see you. Thank you. Hey, there's Marlene. Marlene is here on time tonight, folks. Waiting on her pizza. We should all be so fortunate. When was the last time I had pizza? Marlene, I don't think I've had pizza since I went to Colorado for the Steve Pankey trial. I had pizza out there 2 nights in a row while I was out there. I think that's the last time because, I've been trying to stay away from carbs. Of course, with the bread and everything, that hurts. But I don't think I've had pizza since then. Maybe if I have, it was probably only once. But good to see you, Marlene. Boston, how are you? The Real, good day. Good day to you. The Real. Thin crust, I like, you know what, Marlene? I'm really not that picky when it comes to pizza. My dad is a thin crust guy, period. He will not, the crust gets thicker than about right there, and he starts wondering, what's going on. Me, maybe I'm just too easy. I don't know. Pan pizza, New York style, Chicago style, whatever style. I eat it. You know what? I did have pizza recently. I had pizza. I just bunk, 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 bunk. I had pizza last week or the week before when I got together with Lisa Kassoon, who may be watching tonight. I don't know. Chip Campbell's sister. When I got together with her and her husband, we had pizza. We had our own little individual pizzas. So, yeah, I did have pizza recently. See, I'm losing my mind. 51 years old, losing my mind. Yum pizza sounds good. It's about to eat barbecued wings and Western fries. I love the sound of that too, Laura. Amy says, we eat pizza every Friday night. I make fresh or order Domino's. Either is good to me, Amy. I like it either way. I don't make pizza. Maybe that's something I could take up for 2022. Being that I've been cooking wings, maybe I need to move on to something else now. Maybe. That would be interesting. Because I have an oven to do so. Marlene, I'm not either picky. I'm not either picky on it. Having stuffed cheesy bread also. The stuffed cheesy bread. Wow. You're killing us, Marlene. You're killing us. Man, having homemade pizza. Everybody, it's a pizza night. Wednesdays are pizza night. MJ says, happy hump day, everyone. Look at you, MJ. Valerie says, I just turned the big 4-0 on January 6th. And Screaming says, a little late. Screaming, it's okay. Yeah, I remember when I turned 40, Valerie. It would have been what? August 1st to 2010. I was living in Las Vegas. I was renting a part of a house that I lived in until I left Las Vegas in 2011. I really don't specifically remember what I did on that birthday, though. But happy birthday to you, Valerie, January 6th. As for me, I'm okay. Some of you, many of you I know follow my private or personal, I don't know how private, it's not private at all, but my personal Facebook page, and I really appreciate that. But you know, I had a very frustrating weekend. Before I get into that, what am I going to tell all of you? You got to give this video a thumbs up. You know it's going to be good. I say this every week. You don't need to watch it till the end to then decide, was that video worth a thumbs up or not? You know it's going to be worth a thumbs up. Just do it now. Just do it now. Get down there, couple seconds, hit that thumbs up button. Helps us with the algorithms. It's all good. And then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it till next Wednesday. Or, well, I am going to be posting some videos between now and next Wednesday. You won't have to think about it until I post those videos, which will be in a couple days. So just do it now. In addition, if you are watching and you would like to contribute to Unfound in a monetary way, you can hit the super chat button, which is that little gray box with the $, the American $sign in the middle. And you can monetarily contribute to Unfound. Just to remind all of you, you know that Unfound does no advertising during its episodes or during its audio episodes. That's just the way I do things. However, we do have ads. You know, some people have contacted me. You have too many ads on YouTube. What I would say, if you're watching the episodes or listening to the episodes on YouTube and the ads are too much for you, you should probably just listen to it, getting the Podomatic app or something like that. That would be my recommendation to you. But if you'd like to monetarily contribute using the super chat, you can do that. Of course, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. We'll be talking about that a little later. And paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Once again, because we take no advertising. We are not controlled by any outside strings or ropes or chains or anything else here at Unfound. The program gets done one way, and that's the right way. Liked it before you started? See, MJ knows. MJ knows that it's going to be a great show. She's given the show a thumbs up before I even get started. She knows. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Marlene. Boston Ed, I enjoy your follow-up thoughts posted on Patreon. They're great. I like hearing your point of view. I know that you remain neutral during the interviews, but I'd like to hear your personal opinions. What she is talking about, if you are unaware, is that all of you know that I do not express opinions or theories as to what happened in a disappearance on the episodes. Why don't I do that? Why am I different than most other hosts? Because, of course, a lot of true crime podcasts are nothing but theories. It's a little too spoon feeding all of you, and that's not really what I do, not on Unfound or anywhere else in my life. I don't spoon feed people. I really just like to put everything out there and people will decide for themselves. You're smart people. You take an interest. Of course, with Unfound, you're listening at least 2 hours, around 2 hours every week. That you're doing that shows your interest. So because of your interest, you are more than intelligent enough to look at what you listen to and perform and, create your own theories, your own ideas. Okay. And that's what I want. It takes, as I've stated many times, to, in my position, um, the creating theories is not the most difficult part. What's the most difficult part? The difficult part for Unfound is tracking people down to talk to and having them on the program, creating interview outlines and doing a good program and everything else. That is my concentration. So I appreciate that. And what she's talking about is the blog that I write at patreon.com for $2 a month. You can go back the whole way to 2017 and read everything that I've ever written about opinion-wise regarding the disappearances that have been covered. That's a pretty good deal. You're going to get a little disappearance education in the meantime. Tons and tons and tons of reading. And even more recently, I've put them to audio. So if you don't feel like reading, you can just listen. You can just listen. So think about it, please. Marlene's going to eat. You can't eat pizza and watch the live show at the same time, Marlene. Really? Valerie says, I was watching a video on the Star Trek ride at the Hilton. I think for sure they showed you. Have you seen it? You know what, Valerie? It's certainly possible that I'm on one of those videos. If you would like to send me a link to it, however you saw it, it would be just send it to me at unfoundpodcast.com. If it is a video with me in it, I surely want to see it. And I will post it. So just send it to me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. That would be spectacular. But it may not be me. There were, what should I say? A lot of average height white guys that worked at Star Trek while I worked there. So it could have been one of the other guys. Charlotte, what did you think about? I'm going to be talking about that tonight. I'm going to be talking about the Tom Brown episode of Murder Under the Friday Night Lights for sure. Yes, I do like to encourage independent thinking. Thank you, MJ. Delane, it was okay. I'm going to tell once again, I would watch it, Delane. Do not go by what I'm going to say. You know what I have to say already, Delane. You and I know each other very well. We've talked enough about cases and things through Messenger. I would watch it no matter what I end up saying later. Hello, Christy. Nice face you made there, Christy. Nicely done. Disc golf was not good this weekend. That's putting it about as nicely as I can do it. As I told you last week, I had a little bet going on with a young whippersnapper named Sam. And if you can believe it, there were 3 rounds. And after the second round, I was ahead by 9 shots. He was not playing well. I really wasn't playing that great either, but he was playing even worse. And in the end, he beat me by, 3? It's disgusting. He got hot. I would guess that he would say that he played way over his head. That's not to put him down in any way. But I certainly didn't help things. Was it necessarily a choke job on my part? Probably. Couldn't put it together on Sunday, as happened so many times. I continue to be very frustrated. And I'm not mad losing to him. The fact is that he probably is a better player than I am, so I can't be too disappointed about that. I think we're both disappointed on how really collectively we played. I think he can be very happy about that round, obviously, but overall, I don't think he's very pleased with the tournament as a whole. Either am I. But just, so I'm not really mad about that. I am disappointed in how I just personally played. Just not getting it done. But I'm going to have to find something because I'm going down to Estero, Florida this weekend. In fact, this Friday's episode will come out early because of that. So we'll see if I can put something together, something good together down there and not embarrass myself. And we'll see what happens. it was just not good this past weekend. It's very frustrating. It's easily the most frustrating part of my life. Obviously, I get frustrated with things with Unfound. Like for example, my assistant Sheree knows that when we're having problems getting in contact with people, or I'm supposed to talk somebody, and they no call, no show, and those things certainly get to me. But that doesn't happen a lot. I would say it happens more than probably you, the public, would ever know. And I really don't like to talk about it too much. But what consistently drives me nuts about my life is my disc golf play. And, I've been trying to sort that out mentally, physically. It feels like I'm making strides, but it is just so slow. And, oh man, I just, there are times after I'm out in disc golf course that I do not like myself very much, just to be honest. So there's that, but I got to play this weekend. I don't have to, but I'm going to. And then the next weekend I actually have off. And then I think I play like 3 weekends in a row going into February. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. Charlotte said she did not like the Tom Brown episode at all. Debbie says, hello, Debbie. What's going on, D-E-B-Y? Not D-E-B-B-I-E or D-E-B-B-Y. It's D-E-B-I. Hello to you. Thank you. Hit the like button. Yes, please like it. Christy says, hi, I haven't been making it since the time change. Has been falling asleep too early, but here finally. Well, Christy, what time do you go to bed? Where are you and what time do you go to bed? That's interesting to me. Spleen says, Ed, when you do the map analysis, you are loud enough during the map clips, but always a lot softer when you go back on the camera. I've always wanted to point this out. Those are really informative. You must be talking about the Unfound Now, Spleen, because when I do map analysis for the regular episodes, I never appear on screen. In fact, I have to tell you, that's one of my pet peeves about other YouTube videos that I've watched on those. It doesn't have to be with true crime and everything, but people will be pointing something out, but they'll have like their picture, what they're doing up in the corner. Nobody, when I'm doing that stuff, nobody needs to see me. That's, I know for this live show, everybody likes to see me and I like reading all the comments and I think you love my facial expressions and all those things. But when I'm doing like the map analysis, there's no need to see me. But some people, when they're doing diagrams of like airplane crashes and things, they think they need to put their little picture up there, of what they're doing live on there. And I just can never understand that. But Spleen, you must be talking about the Unfound Nows, because I will be in front of the screen and then I'll do the map analysis and then I'll be doing this again. I promise I will try to pay better attention to that in the future. I don't know what I'll be able to do. Turn up the microphone or turn down the audio on the phone that I use for it. I'll try to figure that out. Sometimes you have to understand, Spleen, that a lot of those Unfound Nows get put together fairly quickly because I'm usually doing a bunch of things at one time. As long as I think people can understand what I'm saying, that's my standard. I just have to be honest. Thank you, Screaming Christy. Ohio, but heck, it gets dark at 4:30, so I start shutting down earlier. Ohio is a great state, Christy. My sister lives there. Okay. Yeah, 4:30, I know. But we're more than halfway, or we're halfway, maybe not, we're more than halfway, not yet, to moving our clocks back in the proper direction. Thank you, Debbie. Been a long time since I made you live like Christy. I've been sleeping. Well, thanks, Debbie. Thanks for staying up. As you know, these shows go to 11 o'clock every night, so sit back and relax. Moving on, as you know, I used to be a huge Steelers fan, not as big a Steelers fan now for a lot of different reasons, but I did watch their game on Sunday and everything that went on Sunday with the Chargers and the Raiders. Crazy. Almost tying and keeping the Steelers out of the playoffs. The Steelers are not very good. I anticipate them getting their butts kicked this Sunday by the Chiefs, but you never know. But that was one crazy Sunday. With them winning, the Colts losing, getting, they were huge favorite and lost to the Jaguars. And then nobody thought that the Chargers and the Raiders would come close to tying, but they almost did. It was crazy. It was quite suspenseful. Charlotte says, I've noticed lately that many podcasts have their volume down so low that you can hardly hear them. Charlotte, I got to be honest, I don't listen to enough of them to know. It's hard to say how that happens. I know I've had audio issues at times, so far be it from me to criticize others. But I don't know how to, reply to that. If you're saying it, Charlotte, I believe it. Boston, I often wonder how much editing you have to do when the person you're interviewing starts to cry. You can hear it in their voice, and then the silence comes. Not a lot, Boston, really. Maybe a little bit. To be honest, tonight I just did an interview that you will hear in a couple weeks, and this woman, had some emotional pauses. But although I haven't listened to the entire interview again, I don't anticipate editing anything like that out. It just depends what goes on, of course. But usually, we get through it without any editing having to be done, usually. Carrie says, I work crazy shifts hours. I'm impressed. I've made it to 2 shows in a row. I am too, Carrie. MJ says that game was fun to watch. You mean the one on Sunday night? Yeah, with their elbows tied. Yeah, it was crazy. I watched it. I was doing stuff, but I watch it. These days, I never just watch something. If I'm watching something that I feel that I have to watch, like if Phil Mickelson's playing golf, I'll certainly watch it, but I will be doing something else. I'll be working on an outline. I'll be just trying to find articles on newspapers.com about a disappearance we're going to be covering eventually. I'm always doing something. Never am I just sitting there watching something. Never. I haven't done that for a long time. Delane, Dolphins in our house. Kevin is mad about them firing a coach. Yeah, I've read about that. What do y'all think of MGL and them? I don't even know who you're talking about, Stitching. What's going on, Stitching? Tune them out. Before getting into true crime podcasting, did you know anyone who had been somehow tied to a crime? Maybe that's a question I will answer later, Spleen. We got maybe that's why don't you ask that a little later? And I'll answer that in a question section. Boston, I couldn't keep myself composed if my family was missing. You have a way of keeping the interview going, which is impressive. Boston, after 250 interviews, I would like to think I kind of know what I'm doing, but some people think I still don't. So there's that. Summer's case. Yeah, Stitching, I just don't know. Everybody else is willing to comment on it. I really just don't know enough about the comment. That's that little girl that went missing from like 6 months ago, right? Something like that. Okay. I listened to the Jordan Carvalho podcast again, and I understand his mom a lot better now. Yeah, I like Anita a lot. Carrie, my brain is too busy to sit and watch something. I'm usually doing several things, whatever I'm doing. Yeah. Okay. The other funny story I have is that, and some of you, once again, if you're following me on my personal page on Facebook, you know this. Yesterday, doing a little cleaning, for us guys, our wallets tend to get thicker and thicker. We get a business card, we get this, we get that. I was like, man, my wallet is really getting thick. What is going on here? And I had these gift cards in there. And then in the process of doing this, I was like, you know what? I think I have some gift cards in my car too. So I went down to my car, got those ones out, brought them up here. Well, now online, you can actually check to see how much a gift card actually has left on it. You have those little numbers on the back. You type it in there, go to whatever company it is or restaurant or whatever, and you can type those numbers in and it'll tell you how much is left. Between one thank goodness it's Friday card, a few Olive Garden cards, and a few Outback cards. You add them all up. I have about $200 worth of gift certificates that I haven't used yet. Crazy. So I'm going to be using some of those this weekend when I go down to Estero, Florida for that tournament. So I won't have to spend anything on food. And, when I look at those gift cards, it reminds me so much of my mother because she knew that when I would go out of town to play in a disc golf tournament that I would have to eat out. So she would send me mainly Olive Garden cards to use while I'm out of town. I can't tell you how many times when I've gone over to Orlando, for example, to play, that I've gone to that Olive Garden that's right there on International Drive, right in the middle of the the touristy area of Orlando. You don't know how many times I've gone to that Olive Garden and used a gift card, a gift certificate to eat there. Many, many times going back, I don't know, 2013, something like that. Although I think the last time I was there, I wasn't staying close enough to that. So there was another Olive Garden that I went to. But I'll certainly be using at least one or two of those cards this weekend. And good thing, given the price of food is going through the roof. So that was just kind of a funny story. Who knows how long I've had some of these gift certificates. It's probably been a while. In fact, I'm open to the idea that at least one of those Olive Garden cards were given to me by my mother, and my mother's been gone for over 3 years. It would not surprise me if one of those cards came from her back from like 2017 or something like that. That would not surprise me. So just kind of a funny story. Maybe just kind of shows, just sometimes I'm not that organized. Boston. Yep. Thank you, Boston. Too much, best way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, Charlotte. Stitching. I've spent many hours watching programs regarding Summer's case since she disappeared on June 15th. An accident still seems most likely to me. Free food always tastes better. True. That's a true statement, MJ. Thank you. Spleen says, "Oh, that would be nice if it was from your mom. We love Olive Garden. I do too. When I think of Olive Garden, I either think like my dad going there all the time, so kind of old people going there, or I think families going there because you get all that bread, you get all that salad. Everybody can eat, and it's decently priced, and it's pretty good food. So I don't know how many single 51-year-old guys they get as customers, but I'm one of them. And I love it. I miss Olive Garden, but everything I like is gluten. Yeah, I don't have a gluten allergy or anything else, Delane, but I just have to watch. I think as I get older, I'm getting lactose intolerant. Mm-hmm. Hello, Iman. Iman. Good to see you. What's going on? Iman says, my 10-year-old loves the Olive Garden. Yeah, love it. Carrie says, Olive Garden is an hour away. See, that's too far away from me, Carrie. I don't know if I could live that far away from a Olive Garden. Hello to you, Iman. All right, so that's some of the personal stuff going on with me. And I did go out today through a little bit. I got together with my brother Brian. We went down to this little 9-basket course called Azalea and played, and it was a beautiful day. We had a great time. So let's, Spleen, I will answer your question right now from before I go any further. Spleen asked me, before getting into true crime podcasting, did you know anyone who'd been somehow tied to a crime? Victim of a crime, mystery like missing person. Wow. Well, I don't have any, nobody's ever gone missing or been murdered in my family, Spleen. Growing up in Leechburg, we did have a murder there, early 80s. This guy, his last name was Sluka, Sluka, murdered a girl. Her name was Joni Johnston. I'm going to say 1980, 81. And as much as we talk about missing people being in wells and everything, he did throw her down a well. Murdered her and threw her down a well. Why? I don't know. He would have been a lot older than she was. I don't know. I don't exactly remember what the reason was or anything. And I can actually remember her. She probably would have been 16, 17 years old, maybe something like that when she was murdered. And her brother, Billy, was in my class, but he had some health issues, and I think he died. He did not live to be very old at all. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but that was the only murder that I can think of that happened in my town of Leechburg when I lived there. Now, there was a murder in there at Leechburg maybe 7 years ago. And actually, the kid that was murdered was the son of a guy that was in my class at Leechburg. And in fact, through marriage, this guy was kind of a cousin of mine. So, and the weird thing is the guy who killed Joni Johnson, like I said, his last name was Sluka, Sluka. I actually worked with his son, who also happened to be named Ed. He was, when I worked for my family in Leechburg after I graduated college from 93 to 98, before I moved to Las Vegas, he was one of the wash guys. He would, when new cars would come in, he'd clean them up and vacuum them, wax them, and take care of all the cars on the property. Clean cars before they went back. If the car was getting worked on, he'd clean it before the customer comes back to get it. That was his job. And his name was Eddie Sluka. And he was still working there when I left. But it turns out that he ended up committing suicide. So I guess kinda, Spleen. That's just off the top of my head. Now, I will tell you that a guy that I worked with at Star Trek, who was a character actor, he played one of the Klingons who walked around on the floor interacting with, the guests in the restaurant and in the line and everything else. He ended up getting murdered. He had, his name was Tom. And this was after Star Trek was closed. It was after 2008. I don't know what he did after. He was an older guy. I don't know what he did after Star Trek closed down, but he had gotten mixed up with some people and gave them some money or something. And then he wanted to be paid back. They wouldn't pay him back. And then they just showed up at his house one night and killed him. And it took a few years before Las Vegas was able to charge those people, and they were charged and they were convicted for his murder. So there's that. And there are probably others, Spleen, but those are the two that just kind of jump to mind. Carrie says, I live in a town of under 200 people. The closest McDonald's is 14 miles away. I don't know how you survive, Carrie. Karen says, wow, 60 and drink 2% cold milk 3 times a day is beautiful unless intolerant. Yeah, I love milk. That's a problem, Karen. I love cow milk. I'm just a little fearful to drink it these days. It seems it's very unpredictable. Can eat ice cream or whatever, and for fun, and all of a sudden I'll eat it once and my body will start doing weird stuff. So I've just decided to stay away from it. Hey, Jill, what's going on? Jill is in the house. Stitching says, it's like that for me as well. We have a big town 15 to 20 minutes away, but they don't have an Olive Garden here. Well, they should, Stitching. There you go. Almond milk. That's what I'm drinking now. Or no, not almond milk. Oat milk. That almond milk. No good. Oat milk is what I'm drinking now. So, Spleen, I hope that answers your question there. So let's go on to the Jordan Carvalho poll. We know if you are new, every Saturday, the day after the episode comes out, I post a poll in the discussion group on Facebook. People get to voice their opinions on what happened in that particular disappearance for that week. For Jordan Carvalho, the discussion group decided that the elements got Jordan. So he went off to go hiking or do whatever. It's hot out, and he was overcome by dehydration, sunstroke, and died. That's what the most common answer, the most popular answer was in the discussion group. I will tell you in the think tank, a little more nuanced. It's a lot of split. I have to tell you, a lot of split decisions this past Sunday in the think tank, which is fairly rare. A lot of split opinions on a lot of things. But as I was talking about earlier, the Patreon blog that I write every weekend after a disappearance episode comes out, you could read it if you are a Patreon member. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I actually, maybe some of you are going to be surprised, maybe many of you. I actually decided that there was foul play involved. I think it was just a combination of things. You know, I'm not convinced that really Jordan was going hiking all those times that his mother said he was. He could have told her anything. I think about that text. I think about why would he leave the house with 2 phones? There's just a lot of things put together that I don't know. It would have been very easy for me to pick the died due to the elements, very much like Crystal Morrison, but there was just enough about it that my mind just went in a different direction. But if you'd like to see how I logically got to that and how I analyze some of these things, you should be a Patreon member. So yeah, we were all over the board then with Jordan Carvalho's disappearance. But I don't think, what will be this Friday? Can't make that prediction right yet as far as what the poll will be and what everybody will think. But we were not in agreement at all for Jordan Carvalho's, which that's why we do this. We'd like to put everything out there. Sam the Septic Man. I'm not familiar with that at all, Boston. No. MJ, was there a Jason Landry update recently? There are no Jason Landry updates. The only thing, MJ, is there was some remains found some distance away that ended up being a kid who was murdered by other kids. But that's that, of course, had nothing to do with Jason's disappearance. No updates, no new reports, nothing. Delane says, I think we were more split than any other time in the think tank, Delane. You very well may be right. It's very unusual. Charlotte says, I'm behind on my blog reading, Ed. Sorry, I've got to get caught up. You know what, Charlotte? They'll be there when you're ready. Boston was thinking for Jordan. I was thinking self-harm. Certainly possible. Nothing ruling that out, Boston. So if that's your opinion, fine by me. Once again, if you are watching this video, when you are watching this video, it doesn't matter if you're watching it live right now or you are watching it in the year 2371, give this video a thumbs up. Moving on. I hope some of you, I don't know how many of you have had the chance to look at it yet, but I posted in the discussion group on Facebook and also on Unfound's website, the unfoundpodcast.com. I got the first part of my testimony from the Steve Pankey trial from last October. I had been meaning to do it, and I just kept forgetting, and then I actually had to type it down in my to-do list, like, Ed, do this. And so I followed the directions, and I was able to get part one. The reason that I was not able to get the full thing is because, and I didn't even realize this when I was here, I was there, but the stenographer on Thursday was different than the stenographer on Friday. And what the stenographer for the first part, who gave me my first part testimony, told me that the other stenographer is very well behind. She is sure that this other stenographer will get to me eventually, but she's just a little busy right now. So what you will see if you were to go to the discussion group on Facebook, if you're not a member there, you should be. You can then download it. It's posted there as a file, as a PDF file. You can download it and see what my first, and when I say the first part, this would be everything before the entire interview played that I did with Steve. Because remember, I went up on the stand, they asked me some questions, then the interview played in its entirety, all 3 hours and how many minutes. And that went over into Friday. And then after that was done, they asked me some more questions. It's those second questions on Friday that are not part of this transcription. So you will get to see what Michael Rourke asked me while I was sitting on the stand. And, he asked me about my background, and I was like, well, how far do you want me to go back? I said something like that. And it's just as I remembered it. Even though it's been a few months, in reading it, it was like, yep, I remember saying that. Yep, I remember saying that. Yep, I remember saying that. And you also get to see in there, though, how when they started to play the interview, that there were some issues with the audio, which should be no surprise to anyone. And they had to fiddle around with it. I think we took a break for 15 minutes when they figured out what they're going to do. And then eventually they figured it out. And it's probably one of my big regrets that the audio for that is not better. But to remind all of you, what happened was just a few weeks before that. Google had issued an update to all of their Android phones that all of the call recording apps don't work anymore. So I had to kind of rig something on the fly for a few weeks until I figured out how I was going to make it better. And unfortunately, it was in that little space of time of 3 weeks is when I did the interview with Steve Pankey. That's just how it worked out. So that was the issue that they had. And they eventually got it all figured out. And it could be heard perfectly fine in the courtroom. But so you will see them, because that all is on the record. You'll get to read what they had to say about all of that. But you'll get to see and read what I said. And when part 2 is available, I'll get that too. Luckily, given that I didn't have much, I didn't really say much during the trial. It only cost me $15 to get that portion. So I got off pretty light as far as cost goes. And I know probably the part afterwards will probably be even cheaper because they charge you per page or something. And I was asked, I was not up on the stand that long after the recording was done. So, but I'll get it. I'll post it so all of you can see it. It'll be a PDF file. You can find it once again in the discussion group on Facebook and at theunfoundpodcast.com. You'll see I just transcript for part 1. You'll see it right there as one of the headings on one of the pages on the website. You'll go there, you'll click on it, it'll say download, and it will download to your computer. You can read it. I tried to post it to the Unfound page, but it does not like PDF files. So you'll have to be part of the group or just go to the website to read it. Boston says, "Oh, I have to click that, check that out. Court testimony sounds interesting." I guess it's a little interesting, Boston. It's just me. Probably the part that sticks out to me is when, he talks about, prior jobs. He asked me about prior jobs and I start listing them and I'm like, well, how far do you want me to go back? I mean, and then he clarified his question. He said, do you have any experience in law enforcement or anything? It was a funny part for me because little does Michael Rourke know how many different jobs I've had, which are many. So I read that part and I chuckle. Thank you for reading it, Kathy. Read your part last night. Thank you, Kathy. Valerie said, that Steve interview was good. I walked outdoors the whole time while listening to it with the same episode. I like long videos. Thank you, Valerie. Laura says there's been a new coverage of Brenda's disappearance. Yeah, I know that. I'm going to be talking about that. You must be reading my mind, Laura. A little later. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that anyway. Laura says, looking forward to reading your testimony. Yeah, you can do it after this live show is done, Laura. Delane says, what recording app do you use? Delane, I don't use a recording app at all now because they don't work on my Android phone. The way I record everything now is I use, of course, my phone for the interviews, and I use my tablet that I have, and I just put it on audio recorder, and I put this on speakerphone. So it's recording me. The guest's voice is coming out of this speaker right here, and my tablet picks all of it up, and it's been working pretty well. I think the audio has been pretty good. So that's what I do now, Delane. And it's really good because the tablet has a lot of memory on it. And that's now where I don't have to worry about the interviews being on this phone. It's on my tablet, which, doesn't get used as much. Yeah, I'm reading court transcripts. Nerdy chick right here. Okay, Boston. Nerdy chick. People talking about McDonald's. I love McDonald's, but I got to stay away from it. All right. So once again, if you're interested in reading what I had to say at the Steve Pankey trial, you can go to the discussion group or you can go to the website, download it, and read for yourself. I thought all of you would find that interesting. Next, maybe some of you have noticed that starting out for, and I didn't announce this, but starting out for 2022, for the last the first 2 episodes of this year, the first couple episodes that have been released for this year, maybe even going back to the end of last year, I've allowed comments on YouTube for those videos. I haven't changed all of them, just the last couple recent ones, just to do a little experiment to see how bad it could get with comments. I would not say this experiment is going very well. I have had to delete a lot of snarky stuff, and I just can't let those things. If we were doing a podcast about video games or movies or I don't know, other topics that aren't as serious, then you're going to get trolls. You're going to get snarky comments. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. And, it's just different. But being that we do things that are so serious, and then to go through the comments and I get, notices when people do right things and, stupid this and stupid that and this and that and the other thing and attacking me personally and all these things. This experiment is not going very well. So I don't know. It just reinforces everything that, for the reason that there haven't been any comments allowed, no comments have been allowed for a very, 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 very long time. It's because of that. So I'm going to continue to monitor it, but don't be surprised if all the commenting gets turned off again. And this is the reason. Stitching, yeah, I'm going to be talking about the Tom Brown TV show Stitching before this is all over. Delane says, my Pixel has horrible speaker volume. Thanks for the time for an upgrade. The speaker on this, what is this, an LG Velvet? LG doesn't even make cell phones anymore, by the way, but somehow I have one. The speaker on this one is fantastic. The camera on it and the video camera and the cameras on this thing stink, but the speaker on it is very loud. So there you go. Carrie says, oh God, you didn't warn us about the comments. No, I didn't, Carrie. Delane says, that's where the trolls really show themselves. Yeah, Charlotte Ed shows how little people can be. I know. And I know people like to comment. I know people like to have discussions there and everything else. But I don't like, the thing I think about is a lot of family members go to YouTube and watch those videos, and then they go through the comments and see that stuff. And then it's like, well, why is Ed missing this? Why is he letting it, and then they're, of course, saddened by that post and it, bothers them and everything else. But then it's also, why is that post even still there if Ed can delete it? So this is another consideration that I must take for all of this. So, I realized ours would be the exception, we can with no comments. But you have to remember something. For example, John Lorden has all his videos, does a great job. The difference, though, is his main medium is YouTube. He's always there anyway. He is nowhere else. Unfound, you have to remember, YouTube is a secondary outlet for us. It's secondary. It's not primary. So that's why probably I think the way I do. There's hope for change. No comments, I think best. Guests shouldn't have to see that. Sometimes can't delete that stuff in time before the guests can see it. You're exactly right. There's hope for change. And I appreciate you contributing through the super chat with that beautiful orange. Reminds me of the setting sun here in Florida. And thank you so much. You are very generous. Thank you so much. It goes a long way. Thank you. There's hope for change. Thanks. Charlotte says I would get rid of the comments, I think. Yep. People. Exactly, Laura. So they can be rude. I know. They can be petty and everything else, and they just write things to write things. Shri says, pretty positive comments and points to ponder so far in the video. I'm anti-comments also, but pleasantly surprised. Yeah, Shri, because I keep the good ones. The bad ones aren't there, and maybe there are. Maybe I've missed a couple that have been posted maybe over the last 12 hours or something. But yeah, I have no doubt that we get a lot of great comments. It's just then weeding out all the bad ones and just have that thing about as There's Hope for Change says, the guests see them. And I want to be in a part of that. There's Hope says, God wish I was in Florida right now. Well, you know what? When you're ready to come here, there's hope. It'll be here. Florida will be here for you. Trust me. All right. So YouTube comments probably eventually going to get turned off again. Just the way it is. 44 in Cherie world this morning. So hard to believe, Cherie. I feel bad for you. Cult of says Florida is the best. I enjoy living here. It's a little flat. Of course, I have a great view where I live, but unless you're near the water, there's not much to look at here in Florida. Whereas living in Las Vegas, I mean, that's beautiful scenery out there, beautiful terrain, the mountains all around, and driving off into the desert. I think from a nature standpoint and looking at beautiful vistas and things, Nevada has a lot more to offer than Florida. Of course, the highest point in Florida is only 370 feet above sea level. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to another question. This is from Karen, who I think got in first tonight. Ed, do you think there are some key questions that law enforcement could use to assess quickly and fairly accurately whether a person is missing versus not there or not here? The tough part is, Karen, that there are a lot of questions that I think are just boilerplate questions. Like, who do you think is the last person to see him or her? Where was that person going? Had that person been acting oddly? I think that those are pretty, once again, boilerplate standard questions. The tough part happens when, those kind of questions are going to be asked in any kind of disappearance out there. The issue, though, is being able to ask, figure out what those questions are, those additional unique questions that go along with the unique facts for that disappearance. That's the tough part. And that's why, as you've heard me say before, you have to know it when you see it. When a police officer shows up, there's a call, missing person, police officer in a squad car, cop car, shows up at the person's house, says, my 25-year-old daughter is missing, and start writing down the information. As the officer is writing the information or typing it into a iPad or whatever else, that police officer should start to be able to kind of very quickly figure out what kind of possible disappearance is this. Is this a man said disappearance? Could this be a disappearance that has to do with drugs? Could it be, some other type? Maybe a very unique type of disappearance. You have to know it when you see it or know it when you hear it. You have to be able to hear what the family member is telling you and be able to quickly deduce what kind of classification am I going to put this in, because then that's going to help the police officer ask additional unique questions to that disappearance. And that's not what's getting done, because I think everybody who shows up just throws disappearances, unless, the situation is somewhat unique, they kind of just get thrown into the same bucket. So to answer your question, the key questions depend on what the police officer is actually being told. And the only way they can do that is through education. It's like saying, it'd be like asking a martial artist, well, what's the best way to sweep the leg or punch an opponent or anything else? Well, anybody can punch a punching bag and we can go through the technique and all those things. But when it actually comes to fighting another human who has his or her own desires and skills and talents and has worked on and everything else, then it becomes noticing what that person is doing. Are they leaning this way? Are they leaning that way? Are they on the front foot, the back foot? What are they, and that really can't, the only way you're going to learn that is through experience. Nothing's going to help, necessarily a practice just hitting boards and punching bags and everything else. That's the way I would explain it. People talking about weather today. Marlene's back. Good pizza tonight. Thank you, Marlene, for making us all hungry. Sounds good. Julie says, wow, interesting. Thanks. Yes to Costa Rica for me. I hate the cold. I would probably not go to Costa Rica. Okay. Carrie says, sadly, not enough classes out there for law enforcement when it comes to missing person investigations. I would love to be able to change that. As you know, Carrie, I'm trying to change that as well. So, Karen, that's my answer. That the only way you can ask the right questions is if you know what you're doing. There's very boilerplate questions. Had you been having any issues? Who saw her last? And all this stuff. But has to be more precise than that if you really, really, really want to narrow it down and keep the investigation time to the shortest time possible. Moving on. As you know, I've already told my assistants that, not all my assistants. I don't think that Emily and Heather know yet, but Carrie and Cherie know. Does Eric know? Did I tell him? I forget. I don't talk about numbers. I don't really pay attention to numbers. As I always say, the program is going to get done one way or the other. It doesn't depend on how many downloads, doesn't depend on how many stars and reviews and everything else. I hope that you will give Unfound a nice review. That's why I do that little statement right at the end of every episode. But you all know by this time, if you're watching this live show, you're really into Unfound. You know this program is going to get done one way or the other. I don't care about reviews and downloads and things like that. It's going to get done. But if you're interested to know, the one time I will talk about numbers for Unfound, it will be right now. I checked the total download numbers for the year 2021. So January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. The total downloads for that year, 2.8 million. I don't know where that compares to anybody else. Sounds like a pretty big number to do. Probably Joe Rogan looks at that number and says, that's nothing. But nobody was more surprised than I was when I saw that number. Now, I will tell you, there was a little weird thing going on, I don't know, with the RSS feed or something, like for a short time, like September into October. And it seemed like the downloads were way, 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 way above average looking at the chart. But even if we were to take those in an anomaly, something weird going on with the internet or something, it would still be over 2 million. Once again, I don't know what any other program does. I have no idea. I'm not necessarily bragging. It stuns me. But that's what it was. Now, of course, where I'm going with this is we would certainly like to get to those numbers on YouTube. The subscriber is like 13,000 subscribers. It's pretty good, but John Lorden, he's way up there. Of course, this is his main medium. Not jealous of him. Very happy for John. But it would be really special if we could start going up, getting to 20,000, 25,000. And that's something that I want to work on this year. And just overall getting the views up on YouTube, because there does seem to be a disconnect between all of the downloads we get for the program through Podomatic and iTunes and Spotify and Pandora and everywhere else, and the numbers that we get for the videos that are posted on here. Like, for example, this live show gets about 600 to 700 views per week. Not bad, but on the other hand, Unfound has 13,000 some subscribers. What are all those other people doing? So I wonder about that. And if I sound like a guy who's never pleased, you're right. So I'm very pleased with the audio download numbers. Podomatic keeps track of them for me. I contacted them to ask them about them just to make sure, how sure they are of these numbers. They sound very sure to me. But there's certainly other areas where we would like to be, moving also toward that, that million, that 2 million, whatever else. So there's that. So that is awesome. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Delane. Thank you. Thank you, Cherie Spleen. Thank you for your generous contribution with the super chat. Thank you. You are generous, Spleen. Thank you very much. Hey, maybe we should Joe Rogan on the show. Haha. Becky says, yeah, we don't do politics here, Becky. That was just an example. We're not going to do that here. The only reason I brought him up is because he's known as having the number one popular podcast in the world. His show, whether you watch it on YouTube or whatever you want to call it, whatever his views are and everything else, I don't listen to it. I just know who he is. His is the most popular podcast in the world. So that's why I brought it up. Not for any other reason. I don't listen to him. Thank you, Stitching. I appreciate that. Thank you, Marlene. Boston, you are generous as well. Thank you. Look at the blue and the green. We had orange. Now we have blue. We have green. Everybody's so colorful tonight. Thank you, Boston. Thank you, Spleen. Appreciate it. Thank you. There's Hope. Thank you, Subrosa. Delane, on Spotify, don't download podcasts so that they count listens also. Yeah, that all counts one way or the other, Delane. Thank you. MJ, as a fellow perfectionist, it's not an easy life. Great to hear. Thanks, Kathy. MJ, I would not call myself a perfectionist. I would probably just say that I just really rarely get to the point where I'm satisfied. Which maybe it's the same thing, but I'm not looking for perfection. I just really look at a lot of these things and say I think they can be better. Not perfect, but better. So there you go. It's Charlie rolling, Shree rolling her eyes. Who is again, Ed, with the most? My understanding is that Joe Rogan, if you don't know him, he used to be on that show, Talk Radio or something, a sitcom. And then he hosted that, the Fear Factor TV show, like a reality show. He does announcing for martial arts or the UFC, but he has a podcast. He has all sorts of famous people on there. And he has the number one most popular podcast in the world. And I know a lot of people hate him, and that's fine by me. I know a lot of people like him. That's fine by me too. Laura, you are generous. Thank you, Laura. That's fine. As long as you're listening, Charlotte, that is fine. Thank you. Thank you, Laura, and once again, thank you. Okay, since some of you have asked about it, the Tom Brown show from last night. I did watch it. I DVR'd it. I was actually doing an interview during it, so I had to DVR it and then watch it after. Is that what I was doing? I was doing something last night. And it was called Murder Under the Friday Night Lights. And as I think I told you last week, I had been working with somebody who worked on that since last summer. The person had contacted me, had asked me about if I had any, what kind of notes that I had from back in 2018. Did I have the video and all of that? And I was eventually able to put a lot of things together for them and send it to this guy. In addition, I got to speak to him on the phone a couple times, and I really felt like I had to give him a lay of the land. Now, fortunately, at the point that he eventually spoke to me, it seems that he had already gotten a good feel for some of the people involved in the conspiracies and the clicks and the finger pointing and everything. But I wanted to assure him that I thought that I'm pretty even-handed, and just to give my insights of everything that has gone on, not just from my personal point of view, having done an episode on Tom's disappearance and then death, but also just in disappearances as a whole, comparing what I've seen go on with Tom's and compared to a lot of others that I've covered. So I think I got to know this guy pretty well. And he did tell me when it was going to be coming out. I do not think that I got credited in that episode last night and anything. I really don't care. But I've seen some comments on it. First of all, you should know they didn't use any of the video that I sent them. They did not use any of that the surveillance video from down at the Abraham building. None of that was used, even though I sent it all to them. But I would, some of you had said, you know what, it wasn't very good. There was nothing new and all of that. And you just got to remember, they only have 43 minutes. That's all they got. Me, I have all the time in the world. That's why sometimes we do 4-hour episodes. In fact, I think, what was Tom Brown's episode way back in 2018? 3 hours? Something like that. Of course, that was before Tom's remains were found, and that was before a lot of things that have happened since. And still, it was that long. You just have to remember they only have 43 minutes. Probably, and I think they could do this given the amount of material. They could, like they did with Robert Durst, who just died recently, and that was a Netflix show. They could certainly do this with Tom's death. Certainly. Absolutely. We all know a lot of you have been with Unfound since 2018. In fact, I think some of you maybe even found out about Unfound because of the Tom Brown coverage. But they could certainly turn that into a series if they wanted to. But you just have to remember it's only 43 minutes. Because of all the commercials and everything else. And you also have to remember that they are not broadcasting that for the hardcore Tom Brown people, the people who have been involved since his disappearance in November 2016, and people who have gotten wrapped up in all of this. That is not who that episode is geared to. That episode is geared to the general public, people who have never heard about Tom Brown's death before. Okay, so you have to remember all of that, and you have to give them a break. All right. Now, is that the way, if I had 43 minutes, is that the way I would cover Tom's disappearance? Probably not. The difference, though, is I've known about Tom's disappearance for almost 4 years now. And these people, they aren't disappearance experts. Who knows what they're working on from year to year. And they just have to figure out how to put something together in 43 minutes that people can understand. My issue, for example, going back to the disappeared days, is sometimes they just get a bunch of things wrong. But you just have to remember that. So, if you were a little frustrated and disappointed and everything else, you have to remember you weren't the demographic for that. You you're the type of person at this point, at least for Tom Brown's death, that you come to the live show, you go back and listen to the original episode, and things that are a lot more intricate. Just different people, just different. Yeah. Thank you, Delane. Yeah, thank you. Sure. What I didn't like is they mostly talked to the Tom Brown body podcaster, and he was not nice at all. Once again, Charlotte, you just have to remember it's all edited a certain way. All right. I don't know. He was, was he not nice at all? If that's your opinion, fine by me. I try not to get too crazy about whether this person is nice and everything else, because I know it's all about the editing. It's all about the editing. And as has been stated many times, when it comes to filming something like a movie or TV show, you could film the same scenes over and over again and splice them. You could turn it from a tragedy to a comedy to anything you want through editing. Having been a filmmaker at one time, I know all about that. So you just have to be kind of understanding with that. Stitching, so that episode was 3 hours and 31 minutes. Thank you for going back and checking that, Kathy. The Tom Brown episode was 3 hours and 31 minutes. Yeah, that sounds about right. Delane says, I never did hear Phil Klein's speech since audio was so bad. Well, it was not included in the episode, but it's still out there somewhere, but it was not included in the show last night, Delane. Subrosa says, I was underwhelmed with the episode. Your coverage was more in depth. Once again, Subrosa, I would just ask you to understand that it's just 43 minutes. We all know all of the stuff that has gone on. And we also have to admit, pretty much for most disappearances, 43 minutes is not enough. With Tom Brown's, it's extremely not enough. So we just have to give him a break. I didn't see it personally. I don't feel I missed much. Just my own opinion. You might want to watch it, Carrie. Delane, that memory of yours is something. Delane, I think that Kathy had to go back and actually check that to know the time length. And see, she's saying she does keep a list. Yes. So there you go. Apples to oranges. All right, Cherie. Charlotte says, the guy, his name is Skip. He was bad-mouthing Penny so much. Well, once again, Charlotte, I think it might be part editing, and also maybe that's just the way he thinks. Durst, interesting serial killer. Delane, and it's geared toward getting views. That's right. Yes, Robert Durst did pass away. So, if you really would want to get much more into it, it'd have to be a series. Just 43 minutes is just not enough. So, in addition, you know me, I've talked about this before. This is not personal against this particular show, but I hate recreations. They did that last night. I hate them. They are so cliche. They portray things, in a way that might not be true. I hate them. Now, I don't know what else could be done, but when disappearance shows, true crime shows use recreations, it just feels so 80s to me. It feels like 80s unsolved mysteries. And here we are doing the same kind of coverage, same kind of show over 30 years later. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't like that. I also have it written here, editing is manipulative. For example, how many times in that episode did they show Penny just sitting there with like a look on her face? That's manipulating. We don't know what was going on. They might have been filming her and she didn't even know it. Some editor just picks something out and puts it in there and makes her look suspicious and everything. It's totally manipulative. That's why, that's the very reason that when we do interviews for Unfound, I don't edit interviews for content. I edit them to take mistakes out and take any like breaks that we may take if somebody has to go to the bathroom or something. Those are the only things that get taken out of the interviews I do with people. I do not edit for content. I don't move people's words around. Nothing. That is standard procedure for true crime shows on TV. And so they can make anybody look like anybody they want by just parsing their words here and there. They can make Penny look guilty by just having her sit on the screen and not say a word. And then some creepy music. That's the way it is. That's the way it's probably always going to be. So now, having read all that, or having said all that, but you should know, I anticipate there will be something of a longer nature coming out this year. And it has to do with a woman who asked me permission to use the Steve Pank interview for her own thing, and I wouldn't allow it. But she is working on something for that, the Steve Pankey trial. So if you're into something, a different kind of disappearance or a murder with Janelle Matthews, it won't be Tom Brown, but it'll be, I think this will be maybe something that's more to your liking for Janelle Matthews' murder of what she's working on. In contrast to Tom Brown's that was only 43 minutes long. But, I would tell anybody out there, if you are a TV producer who wants to get something on Netflix and wants to do a good job, Tom Brown's death would probably a good place to start. Because it certainly needs more than 43 minutes. Delaney, I wouldn't waste much time trying to listen to Phil Klein's presentation. Kathy says, Charlotte, they didn't say anything new at all, and that is the only reason I watched it, in case they did. Charlotte, once again, you got to remember, it's not, these types of shows are not for us. We have to remember that these people are not really investigators. They'll be working on Tom Brown's show now. This time next year, they could be working on a magic show. Spleen, you didn't like them on Unsolved Mysteries? Well, they were fine on Unsolved Mysteries in 1986, Spleen. Because it was kind of a new thing. I don't know how many recreations, of course, true crime shows like programming like Unsolved Mysteries were new, period. So they used recreations that we're still doing it 35 years later. Seems weird to me. Is there not another way to, display these disappearances or murders or whatever else they are? Of course, the thing I worry about is people then seeing that and then thinking they actually saw something that was real. That happened with Unsolved Mysteries with Dale Kerstedters. On the actual episode back then, they actually did recreate it, and everybody thought that was the real security video from inside that plant. It wasn't. That's why, once again, I don't like them. But they were fine back then. It just seems so cliche now, Spleen. Sometimes Phil Klein is more of a comedy entertainer. I'm going to get to that. Kathy Oed, I found another case in which a car is still missing. I re-listened to Steven Adams with Denny a few days ago. His truck was found, Kathy. His truck was found. Pretty sure, Kathy. Delaney, I don't care much for Phil personally, so that's why I'm not really trying to get through it. Yes, please hit the thumbs up button. Steven Adams, yes, right. I've got to remember that. Charlotte says, Stitching says, I don't have a TV right now. Stitching, you might be better off because of that. Delane, the behavior panel did an episode of Durst. It was actually kind of comical. He was definitely a strange bird. That's true. I don't know much about Robert Durst. Now, regarding Phil Klein, already today he came out. He's going to do some live show tomorrow, pointing out all the mistakes that show made. When does it end? When does it end? Now, see, if they would have included me, if they wanted to interview me, I would know that if I chose to take part, that whatever I say is going to get diced up and they could make me look like anything. I've just talked about that. I know that Phil Klein actually took part in that TV show, in that production, and he actually thought that it was going to come out in a way that he wanted, that there wouldn't be, corners cut and everything else, and everything is bizarre to me. The amount of time he spends trying to correct the record and everything else has not helped anything. It's not important that Phil tried to correct mistakes that people make. The only thing that's important is that he continues to investigate it. What some production company LA does in Texas doing the show is not necessarily important. I mean, what does he become at this point? The publicity director for the entire Tom Brown case. Is he a PR, public relations person now? No, that wasn't true. We want to get the right story out there about. It's disgusting. In fact, I will tell you, Shree, I text her. I don't mind even telling you now, making it public, Shree. I cannot stand the sight or the sound of that guy. Just can't take it. Just can't take it. Just can't do it. I think it's very sad. I'm not angry or anything else. It's very, very sad. I don't know what happened to Tom Brown, but never have I heard a person in a position of investigation say on and on and on and on and on that somebody was murdered. This person's in a position to prove it, but hasn't done so. I continue to be open to all possibilities. Suicide, murder, elements, whatever. I continue to be open because why? There's a lot of things pointing in a lot of different directions. But this guy is so set on the idea. He keeps saying that Tom was murdered. There's no proof of that. Despite him doing the show last October when it was, no matter what he says tomorrow, there's no proof of that. Despite him working on it for now over 5 years. Now, he may eventually find something that proves that Tom was murdered. If he does, I give him all the credit in the world. But until then, it's just bizarre to me how he makes this insistence. And the problem is, the more people listen to him and watch him in that video and he lays out his case, the less people believe him. That he doesn't get that also shows what kind of ego he has. That he doesn't realize that he's actually making everybody, all his enemies' cases for them. He doesn't even realize that. And I feel bad. I feel bad for Penny. I feel bad for the rest of the family. I feel bad for people who do believe that Tom was murdered, that they have to feel like they have to get behind Phil Klein. I feel bad for all of them. So there's that. That he would think that he needs to, as an investigator, he has to come out tomorrow something, in saying that show got this wrong and that wrong, that he feels that he needs to do that is bizarre. Bizarre. I have to say, my opinion, at least from my point of view, and I don't like Phil Klein that much anyway. I thought he was treated fairly in that TV show. Little bad, little good, little somewhere in between. But, that sounds like even-handed coverage to me. Obviously, he felt otherwise. Of the Boston says, yes, of course he is Phil. Charlotte, I think if they can't do a case justice, they shouldn't do it at all. Charlotte, that's just not, you're right, but that's just not how TV works. Carrie, my own opinion here, if Phil Klein would spend more time actually investigating, less time trying to defend his honor, they might actually have something new to say, but Showboat McGee won't allow that. Showboat McGee. Oh my, I don't even know who Showboat McGee is, but I'm liking that already. Boston, Phil would have been great for a soap opera, just my opinion. He's unprofessional. Tree agrees. He's everything I refuse to be when I finally get my PI license. He is gross. Shree says, you are not alone, Ed. I know. I just want all of you to know something. It's okay to think that Tom Brown was murdered and also find Phil Klein despicable at the same time. Okay. Do not feel because you think he was murdered and that's what Phil says and everything that you feel that you need to be in league with him. My belief is that if it is ever proven that Tom was murdered, Phil Klein isn't going to do it. So for all of you who really believe that for whatever reason, maybe you can all get together and find some other capable person to do it. Sheree says he's a big scammer, a thief. He preys on vulnerability. Hello, Angela. How are you? Good to see you tonight. Unfortunately, we only have about a half hour left, but it's good to see you. Boston says, yes, Ed would kick ass. I'd hire him in a New York minute. I don't know. It's investigating disappearances are a tough gig. The main problem being the people who do try to go about doing them don't have a lot of experience. I know it was said in there that Phil has a lot of time investigating child disappearances. Well, we have to qualify that. I'm so impressed. I brought, found children who are missing. You know what most of the time finding missing children is? Going and finding the adult, they're usually a parent who kidnapped the kid. That's usually what it is. It's not that a child was kidnapped by a stranger, got in a car, went across the United States, changed their appearances, like what was it, Kristen Smart? It's when people talk about, well, I brought children back to their family. It's usually because one parent kidnapped the kid, didn't go along with a custody arrangement. And that's all it is, tracking that parent down who isn't changing appearance, who isn't changing their name or anything else. It's good work, but let's not kid ourselves. They're not solving a mystery. It's no mystery usually who these kids are with. This isn't Jacob Wetterling when these people talk about bringing all these children back to their mother or their father, to their other family. It's usually because some other family member kidnapped the child. It's not a mystery who did it. So we have to figure that. So obviously, Tom Brown's death is different than all of those. It's way more complicated. So anybody who would have experience looking into child disappearances of the type I'm talking about, none of that experience helps. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Zero. It was Kathy. I was wrong. The article said that Steven's truck was found in the following day. That's exactly right, Kathy. Thank you for looking that up. Yeah, I was going to say, I remember seeing pictures of his truck. So, okay. Thank you. I thought I was losing my mind, Kathy. I realized you are very, very sharp on that stuff. Charlotte says, I know it's all about the ratings. You know what, Charlotte? It's really about they have some time that they need to fill. That's what it's about. Charlotte, it's not the only case Phil Klein is screwed up. He has a history of taking money and running his mouth. I know a lot of people are going to think about whatever happened in Idaho. I don't know what happened there, but it seems the family still all ticked off about what Phil Klein did. Carrie, I would really like to see how real stats on his closed cases, not just the Yes, child disappearances are totally different than teens or adults. They are. Yeah, Cherie, you and Carrie have created a Phil Klein file. Yeah, I'm sure we have done it together not long ago. Yep. Stitching says, give a thumbs up. Thank you. Do PIs have a board that oversees them? Probably not, huh? Delane, it depends on the state. Depends. What you learn is anybody can pretty much become a private investigator. And, I don't necessarily have anything against that. In fact, I will tell you, a friend of mine in North Carolina, has been thinking about changing jobs. And, his father was a police officer. And I told him, why don't you go get your PI license in North Carolina? You never know where it might go. Just do it. So it's not, the problem is that all of these private investigators oversell their experience, whatever they're being asked to do, and then charging for it. Carrie, you're going to be the best PI ever. Yeah, Carrie, you let me know when you get that license. So there's that. So who knows what is going to go on tomorrow? Because it's Tom Brown news, I'll have to cover it. 48 hours this past weekend, they did it again. I'm going to run out of time tonight, I think. Wow, this time's going fast. 48 hours. My name was on the screen again. They used a clip of Steve Pankey's interview again. They put the logo up on the screen again. They did it all again. Didn't let me know it was going to, so it all happened again. I really only have two things to say about the coverage from Saturday night. Is that first, how was anybody surprised by that verdict, that it was a hung jury? I just, I know John Lorden and I talked about that, and I stated I was surprised that John thought it. It just, if you were really following the trial, you had to understand that there were a lot of question marks, tons of them. The other thing is, if you've watched the Saturday night, we're now talking about another TV show, do you not get the idea that Norris Drake is a better suspect than Steve Pankey for Janelle Matthews' murder after watching that show on Saturday night? That he lived across the street, that he had some issues, that his only alibi is his mother, that he was gone that night. And I still have a big question about that rake. If Steve Pankey, how could Steve know if Steve did it? How could he know that he would find a rake in the garage that he could use to cover up his tracks? When did he do that? How would he have had time to do that? Unless somebody who was watching the house all the time and knew that the Matthews kept their rake in the garage and knew it would be there and came up with that idea. Something to think about. So yeah, that happened. Moving on. If you'll remember, going back to when I was in Greeley, Colorado, I told you how I had been interviewed by this guy. His name is Dylan Taylor Lehman, and he has the website, theyawningchasm.com. There will be an article coming out on narratively.com tomorrow. He's writing about podcasting and the coverage of true crime and things, and he interviewed me in the hotel that Friday after I was done with my testimony. I went back to bed, And then around 1 or, whatever it was that day, later that day, he came over. He'd emailed me and asked me if I was available for an interview. I said, yeah. So he came over and we must have talked for 45 minutes. And I'm guessing he turns that into some sort of article that's going to be out tomorrow on Narratively. When it comes out, I will link to it. It will be on the discussion group. It will be on the Facebook page. It will be on Twitter. It will be on the website. So that is finally coming out. And I'd asked him about it maybe a month ago. Hey, Dylan, what's going on with that? And so finally that is happening, coming out tomorrow. Next, the Jody Huisentrude podcast. The newest episode came out. Yours truly and Unfound got mentioned. They were talking about media coverage for disappearances and how it can be difficult and what families could do better. And Caroline Lowe had asked me maybe a week ago, 10 days ago, if I could, what are some of my opinions of what families get wrong, what they do right, what they get wrong, and some tips and everything. I wrote something up for her, and she included some of that in that latest episode. So if you have not listened to that latest episode, please do so, of the Find Jody podcast. And if you have not listened to any episode yet, I would certainly put that on your list of true crime podcasts to listen to. I think they do a nice job over there. Forget how many episodes they have now, 20 some. And it all has to do with Jody's disappearance. So please check that out. Chemo says a lot of ex-cops turn into PIs. That's true. That is true. Boston, that's great, Carrie. I live vicariously through you. I've always wanted to be a private investigator. Boston says, are you kidding me with 48 hours? What am I kidding you about, Boston? Laura, I think Norris Drake is a way better suspect. Stitching says, yep. Kathy, Laura, I disagree completely about Norris Drake. He was visiting his mom and sister. He did not live at his mom's house. Okay, so some people think he's a viable. It all depends whether the mother's, Kathy, all I would ask is to remember how many mothers will lie for their law-breaking sons. So that's just something to remember. Laura says, I'm thinking of applying for 911 dispatcher in my county. They are hiring a lot of people. Yeah, Laura. Delane, I've got to get back on Facebook in the discussion group. I rarely go on Facebook anymore, except to share my Granberry baby photos. Well, what are you doing, Delane? You got to get in on the discussion group. We would like to see you back there. So, but going back to Boston says, are you kidding me with 48 hours? Once again, Boston, if you could clarify that, what do you mean? Am I kidding you? So Jody Huisentrude, next, maybe I should answer this other question from Laura. Boston says I need to make a fake Facebook account. Okay. But I'm still wondering about, are you kidding me with 48 hours? I want to really make sure I answer that if you're unclear about something, Boston. Laura, who I think is in here, asked me, this is the last Steve Pankey 48 hours question I will ask. I know you have addressed the issue multiple times. My question, how do you feel knowing that Steve most likely lied in a majority of the interview you did with him? Surprising, or did you suspect it? And after all that has happened in the 48 hours controversy and having to testify, do you regret doing the interview in the first place? No, I don't regret doing it. Somebody had to. Like I said, I'm still surprised more people didn't take him up on it. Am I surprised that he lied? No. But, this is the standard with any interview I do. You can choose to believe or not believe anything a guest says. I try to ask the best questions that I can to try to flesh some of these things out, to really, really, really try to figure out if the person is telling the truth or not. I don't necessarily always think that, I'm not taking things for granted, I don't think. But you also have to understand there are a lot, if not most of the stuff we cover on any disappearance is impossible to verify. This is why I tread very lightly when it comes to allowing guests to start coming up with theories and conjecture and all that stuff. No, not surprised that he lied. Not necessarily offended. I just think he's a kook. Whether he's a murderer or not, he's just a kook. I gave it my best shot. And I have to admit, not patting myself on the back, but I think I asked enough questions of him and that to realize I think people would understand that some of these things just did not sound true. The father-in-law coming over, some of these other things that he now admitted he made up. So, I think, I don't think I blatantly caught him in a lie, but I think I asked enough good questions to show how shaky some of his storytelling was. And sometimes that just has to be good enough. I need to make a Carrie. Sheree says, me too. Steve had extensive criminal charges dismissed or not. Most people don't get called into court that many times to face allegations. Kathy, okay. Don't remember that. I don't know. 40 Hours did it again. They used your material. They didn't ask again. I'm assuming they did not. They did it again. Yes, that happened on Saturday night. I did DVR it. Sheree says, Steve may not have known the rake was there, but when he saw the footprints, he knew he needed something. Most people in Colorado need a rake at some point. Steve was admitted liar. Yeah. It's just all about the opportunity, I guess, Sheree. Kathy, Sheree and I agree regarding Steve P. Ed and I don't. This will not change. It will not change. Boston, I thought you just said that they used your content again. They did. They did, Boston, and they did the exact same thing they did before. Perhaps you're referring to the first time they used it. No. No. On Saturday night, they did another Steve Pankey episode where they covered the trial and how it became a hung jury. And they did it again. Same thing with a piece of the audio and all of that without letting me know. There's Hope says you're always respectful to guests no matter what. I think that's great. I treat them all the same. Thank you, Julie. He admitted under oath he lied over and over, but when it comes to murder, he wants us to believe him. Sheree, I get it. I get it. Recovering, Kirnoth, thank you. You're very generous. Kirnoth says, recovering from a certain virus while listening to you and working remotely. My name's Kier, as in Noth, as in sloth. I got it right. Kirnoth. Thanks for joining us tonight, Kirnoth. I know you've been in here before, but thank you for the generous super chat contribution tonight. Thank you so much. And I hope you get over that certain virus. Charlotte says his own attorney says he is not. Yep. Thanks, Laura. So we are still live, Jill. Yes, we are still live. We got about 12 minutes to go, and I had more material than I needed tonight. Boston says the nerve of them. That's what TV people do. Everybody has to understand. There's a reason I'm not involved with filmmaking or TV production anymore. There's a reason. But Laura, no, I'm not offended. If the opportunity were given to me again with somebody who's accused of murder, I'd probably do it again. As long as they wanted to go along with my rules, I would do it again. But if they started saying, no, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that, then I wouldn't do it. One of you mentioned Brenda Condon recently, and maybe for some other reason, but friend of the program, Kenneth Maines, remember he was on the program way back in 2017. He has started a podcast, and recently he spoke about Brendan Condon's disappearance. This is especially interesting. I've not listened to it yet, so I don't know what was said, but this is especially interesting because Ken, when he was a police officer, was out of Williamsport, and that's right near, of course, where Brenda went missing. So in that podcast that he is now doing, maybe he offers some insight into working up there. Like I said, I've not listened to it yet. And it's, of course, still unsolved. And, being that many of you remember when he was on the program, maybe you want to check that out to see what kind of podcast he does. I've not listened to it yet. Lastly, of the items that I really wanted to cover tonight, Austin Pivo, one of his, I have to read this. Let me find it. Bump, 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 bump. Here we go. No. Hold on just a second, everyone. Everybody. Sentencing for Blandon Kobe is over. And 1 year and 1 day in prison is the judgment for his part in disposing of Austin. Blandon, this is Susan, Austin's mother, talking. Blandon robbed our family of the right to bury my son, for his family and friends to pay their respects to him. I told Blandon, you knew. You let me believe my son was okay and alive. You lied to me and told me that Austin used the phone and walked off. You will forever have my son's blood on your hands for your part in disposing of his body. Blandon's fate will be left up to the Creator now. Rest in peace, my sonny boy, Austin. So Blandon Kobe was not convicted of murder, but for helping get rid of Austin, and he's going to spend 1 year and 1 day in jail. Boston says they could afford to throw you a few bucks. Yeah. Yeah, they could probably, Boston. But, I realize that it's all about fair use and all of that stuff. But, it just seems weird. Charlotte, I listen to Kenny Mayne's podcast all the time. He is great. Okay. So have you listened to the one regarding Brenda? If you have, Charlotte, maybe you want to give it a review on here. There's hope. Got to go. Plan on swinging by regularly on Wednesdays. Always interesting discussions. There's hope. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you for your generous contribution through Super Chat. I hope you have a great week. Can you sue 48 hours over that, Ed? I don't think I can, Stitching. No, but it's a good question. Laura, Charlotte, yes, he is good. He's the one who covered Brenda Condon. Okay, Laura's okay. So he's doing a nice job over there. Good for Ken. Laura, listen, you should know new updates, but he has a good point of view and gives a great coverage of the case. He had been to the tavern multiple times. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to have to make some time to listen to it. Carrie does not like the sentence for Blandon. Okay. Yeah. A couple news items. If you saw, this is a disappearance from in England. Andrew Gosden, September 2007. 2 men have been charged with kidnapping him and a variety of other charges. I have to admit that I don't know how they tracked these two guys down. I guess one of them had child pornography on his computer or something. Maybe there was something on there that pointed them in the direction of Andrew. But they have certainly been arrested in connection with Andrew Gosden's disappearance. For some of you who don't know, Andrew skipped school. He took 200 pounds out of the bank and then skipped school, got on a train and went down into London. And there was video of him doing this. You should know 200 pounds was about $400. So, it's a big question to me. How did he get this $400? And once again, he only bought a one-way ticket to get to London. And if I had more time, maybe I could do a little better analysis of this. Maybe next week, maybe I'll even write something in the discussion group about it. But there are certain things about this that make me doubt that these are the two guys who harmed Andrew, but maybe the London police know better. But that's a big, to me, as far as I know, that's the first breaking news on that disappearance since 2007. So some of you are commenting on Blandon's sentence, not liking it. And then Spleen says, I know I was floored by Andrew Godden's the news. You never know when these things are going to pop up, Spleen. The other something news I wanted to talk about was Rosemary Rodriguez. Her car was found. She was found in it. And now they're process of trying to figure out whether this was the foul play or not. The way I will tell you, the way I read it, I don't believe it was foul play. And the reason I say that is because in reading how what they had to do to take her car out of the woods, it seems it was buried pretty far in there. They had to make a road to get it out. And, who would do that? How would somebody, the car had to have been going at a high rate of speed to get it that far into the woods, especially when there's so many trees and so much brush and everything else. Then how did this person who did this, kind of survive going that fast, bury it in the woods? I have to admit, right now, I'm leaning not toward foul play. Even though I know everybody has thought it was foul play, that her husband did it. Maybe there will be evidence. Now, of course, if she was found in the trunk of the car, or I think it was a hatchback, so in the hatch of the car or something, and she wasn't in the driver's seat, that would change everything. But nothing like that has been stated yet. So for Andrew Gosden, I think there are some reasons to doubt these are the two guys who caused Andrew's disappearance. And with Rosemary Rodriguez, I'm not going to be surprised if it wasn't foul play. I know, I'm just being weird tonight. So let's move on to this Friday's disappearance. This is a disappearance out of Iowa. I think we've only, I think we've been there before, but not too many times. Christian Balke Thompson. He has a hyphenated last name, Balke, Balke, dash Thompson. He disappeared on May 3rd, 2020. So very, very new disappearance. The newest we've ever covered on Unfound yet. He disappeared from Fort Dodge, Iowa on May 3rd, 2020. His mother, Michelle Balke, is the guest. I need to thank friend of the program, Marky Davis, at We Help the Missing, that page. Hopefully you are a member of that page. And she introduced me to Michelle. And Michelle and I finally got together for this interview. We conducted it. The interview started at 12:30 a.m. So when you hear this interview on Friday, you'll know it's well after midnight. What I do to get interviews, right? And the name of the episode is Burned Up. We have another disappearance, although we've not really covered that many that involve fire. This might be the 6th or 7th. But in this one, Christian went missing, and then his phone pinged at a certain location. 36 hours later, firemen were called to that property, and the owner of that property had mistakenly burned a building on his property down. When the firemen finally put the fire out, what did they find? They found the remains of a car, and it ended up being Christian's. But this disappearance is still unsolved. Nobody's been charged with anything. But that is the disappearance. This disappearance is not on the Charlie Project, but it is on NamUs. Although NamUs gets the age of Christian wrong. I think they have him at 36. Should be 26. So once again, this Friday, Christian Balke Thompson, May 3rd, 2020. Title of the episode will be Burned Up. Disappeared from Fort Dodge, Iowa. His mother, Michelle, is the guest. And Marky Davis facilitated all of it. And I cannot thank Marky Davis enough. If you're wondering who Marky Davis was, she was the guest going way back to 2018 for the disappearance of Jeremy Burt. So like exactly 4 years ago. So that's all I got. Charlotte says, wasn't she found, Rosemary found in the back seat? I didn't read that anywhere, Charlotte. If you have anything regarding that, please post it in the group or send me some information, because I was looking for that piece of information and could not find it. So if she was in the back seat, obviously that changes things, but I've not read that anywhere. Maybe you're right. So what do we do tonight? I talked about my putrid disc golf play. Talked about the Steelers making the playoffs. Talked about my $200 worth of gift cards. The Carvalho poll. Testimony transcript. YouTube comments. Downloads for the total downloads for 2021. The Tom Brown Show. 48 hours. Narratively coming out tomorrow, that article. Jody Husentroop podcast. Brenda Condon with Kenneth Maines doing the podcast on her. Austin Pivo, Blandon Kobe sentence. Talked about Andrew Gosden. Rosemary Rodriguez. Took questions from Spleen. I took a few questions tonight from Spleen, Karen, and Laura. Some of you were very, very generous with your super chat contributions. And that's all I have. So you will be hearing me again Friday. There will be, by the way, a map on this YouTube channel for Christian's disappearance as a supplemental. That's all I got. Now, some of you are also saying, I read that. Okay, well, I guess I missed it. Maybe I will have to reassess my theory on Rosemary Rodriguez. Thank you so much, Sheree. Thank you for moderating tonight. Great job, everybody. Great discussion tonight. Had a nice viewership tonight. And give this video a thumbs up. Find me on Patreon. Find me on PayPal. Find Unfound on those locations. Good night.